Well, congratulations, Monique. Oh, Miss Monique Farmer. Yes, girl, you've just completed your first book, Chart Your Path. I know how you must feel. In fact, I know how I felt when I finished my first book. The second one, and the third one, Diva 2.0. Yes. Anyway, I'm very happy for you. Proud that you were able to do it, and you did what you should have done. Followed your own advice and charted your own path. Encourage others to do the same. Chart your path.
Thank you to the illustrious and wonderful Shirley Ralph. Thank you for joining us today. So, at some point in our lives, we all become stuck. We might become stagnant in our careers or simply the way we're living our lives. The tough part for many of us is how do we move forward? Today, you will get some answers as author Monique Farmer and a group of distinguished panelists will share their life experiences and give us tips to chart our path to success. Right now, we want to begin with Monique Farmer.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited. It's so good to see you all. And I'm so blessed to be able to have you extend some of the generosity of your time. And I'm looking forward to a fruitful and productive discussion this afternoon. So I'm going to get us kicked off with an introduction of who I am. And then I'm going to pass the baton to someone else, and I'll ask you each to do the same. So good afternoon. I'm Monique Farmer. I'm an accredited public relations professional. I own a firm called Avant Solutions. It's based out of Omaha, Nebraska. And I'm proud to announce that I'm also a first-time author, and the beautiful women who are joining us this afternoon have each been featured in my first book, Chart Your Path. And so thank you, and shout out to Damali Hill for getting us kicked off and for serving as our moderator this afternoon. I'm going to pass the baton to Amelia O'Reilly.
Thank you so much, Monique. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for making me a part of this event. I am very excited and honored to be here today. My name is Amelia O'Reilly. I am the founder of an organization called How to Breast Cancer at thebreastcancerguide.com. And we are an online platform that offers tools and information to anyone navigating a breast cancer journey. And what is a little bit unique about us is that our information is based on patient to patient experience. So it's really the lived in experiences that all patients go through with the intention to help their journey be a little better. Before I launched my organization, I was in corporate America for over 20 years, working with several Fortune 50 companies at an executive level. But I am delighted to be here today and to share however I can be of value to this great discussion. And with that, I will hand over to Damali.
All right, let's go ahead and go to Latricia and Latasha, the media mavens for BSM.
Yes, my name is Latricia McIntosh. First and foremost, I'm a child of God, a wife, a mom, an entrepreneur, and a twin founder of BSM Media Group LLC. It's a woman-owned media and production company based in Houston, Texas, and I was raised in Oakland, California, always a Cali girl.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Latasha Taylor, and what she said, but I'll repeat some of it again. I am co-founder of BSM Media Group, LLC. Again, it's a woman-owned media and production company. And I'm also a boy mom of an adult son and a son that's in high school that plays varsity basketball. So I'm also a basketball mom. And I'm excited to be here with all of you beautiful people. And yeah, let's get started. I'll pass the baton on to Julie.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here, especially with you, Monique. It's been a while, but I'm thrilled to be here. And Monique and I had the great pleasure of meeting just a couple of years ago with a mutual friend. And that's how part of the genesis of this book. And I'm so excited to see her vision become a reality. And actually, that is who I am. I am the founder of Live Your Vision. It's an executive and professional and personal development company for women. We help them to discover, develop, and distribute their phenomenal gifts so that they can go on and make more impact, income, and have more fulfillment. And it's so exciting to watch it come to life. Seeing Monique literally do that has been one of my greatest joys and greatest honors. I am a mom of two as well. I've been married to my high school sweetheart for 37 years. We're originally from New York, came by way of Los Angeles for 25 years, and now are based in Atlanta. My oldest is still in LA at UCLA Law, and my youngest is in LA, and my oldest is actually in Nashville, is a program director there, and is planning the wedding of her dreams. As we like to say, she is living her vision.
That is wonderful. Okay, just quick. I know we were going to start the questions, but I just want to let everyone know who's joining the webinar today that the price of the book has dropped to $15.99 for today only. Our goal is to reach bestseller status. So what we would love for you to do is follow the link in the chat. It leads to Amazon, and then if you've already bought a book, it's okay. Buy another one as a gift, please. We really love it. I have bought a book for my niece who's graduating from Howard University in the next 2 weeks. She's a little nervous about how to move forward, and I thought this is the perfect book for her. So maybe you have a college graduate coming up. Maybe you have someone who's in the middle of their career who's asked you questions or asked you know, for advice. This is a great way to do it. So again, the book is $15.99 for today only, and we really appreciate you helping us become bestsellers for the afternoon. All right, let's start off with Monique. I would love for you to share the inspiration behind writing Chart Your Path and what motivated you to delve into this topic.
Yes, thank you, Damali. Well, Julie knows this, and she mentioned that we had the opportunity to work together as part of one of her cohorts in Live Your Vision. And Julie and I were introduced through a mutual friend. I was really just trying to figure it all out. I made the leap into entrepreneurship. It's a scary leap. You really literally feel like, okay, I'm going to jump off this cliff. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to jump off the cliff. But I think it's less scary if we all have a guide through that. And so our initial conversation, and Julie, I think that she maybe has a couple of approaches that she does for discovery, but after I talked to her for the first time, I'm like, I have to work with this woman. But we designed this perfect day during this conversation, and it had color, and it tapped the sensory details of, okay, what are you going to do first thing in the morning? And what will you have for lunch that day? Who will you have lunch with? What happens when you end your work day? And so I designed this day. I kind of like had a white paper in my office, and I was like writing all the things, telling her. We got to the end of that conversation, and she said, "Why aren't you living that life right now?" And for me, it was so profound. I mean, and we all, I think, come up with excuses for why we're not designing the lives we want, but it stopped me in my tracks throughout that year-long journey with the cohort. And shout out to, I see a couple of my cohort peeps on the webinar this afternoon. So thank you so much for your support and joining us. But throughout that time, part of that discovery process also uncovered my, what Julie calls, unique problem-solving approach. And that's what this book is. I got to discover it with Julie as part of that cohort after a year, but it was unbeknownst to me that this is the way I had been approaching life problems for a long time, from the time I was probably in elementary school, middle school. This is the way I was climbing out of difficult situations. This is the way I was kind of getting from a stuck place of tension to where I wanted to be, tranquility, over and over again, unbeknownst to me, and even now. And so that is what the book is. It is me sharing my own unique problem-solving approach with the rest of the world. And while it may not be the way for everyone, it is another tool in the toolbox for figuring this whole journey of life out.
Oh, I love that answer. Okay, let's go to Latasha and Latricia, who I'm also in Houston too. What inspired both of you to create BSM Media Group LLC? We'd love to hear more about that.
Yes, thank you, Damali. I'll go first. Latasha, of course. What initially inspired us to create BSM Media Group LLC is it started off as a one-page blog, and then it became a magazine, and then today it is the corporation BSM Media Group LLC. So initially, what inspired us was just tapping back into our creativeness. We, of course, are sitting side by side now. We've always done things together as children. We would make shoes out of newspaper, sell lemonade, earrings, chocolate chip cookies in the summertime. So it was really an extension of who we were as children and now being adults. So I always like to go back to the blueprint of when we dreamed and our creative juices were really flowing. And that's what this business represents for us initially. And then today's time, I love the fact that it continues to motivate me to grow as a businesswoman and to take that seriously. So that's been the evolution, and that's been the growth to tap into our creativeness, that we're now business women, being able to show our creative spirit and share with others.
Yeah, and she, I want to add what she said as far as business. I feel like it was passed down from our dad. He is an entrepreneur in Mississippi, and so he's instilled that in us. And so it's been really inspiring to see his journey and that we are following suit as far as business women as well.
Yes, and I would like to also add, a lot of times when people think of someone being creative or dealing in something in the arts, they're thinking about how can these people make money, what can they do? But content creation and the ability to be able to use content to produce, whether it's scripts or movies or a project that you can work with.
Okay, well, I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but I loved hearing about how they started their business, which really leads me back to Julie. In the book, you talk about what led you to start Live Your Vision. Tell us that story. What are some pivotal moments or realizations that led you to take this path?
Sure. Can you hear me? Yeah, there we go. Okay. So, well, I too had an entrepreneurial father. I can second that with the twins. It's part of the DNA, I suppose. But mine probably came through a little bit of a tragedy. Well, more than a little bit. I lost both of my parents, who I was very close to, suddenly. And then unfortunately got into a very difficult lawsuit with my brothers. And honestly, both my husband and I lost our careers suddenly, all at the same time. So I like to say, and some of you will probably know what I mean, it was a dark night of the soul period of time. I had two young girls. I did not know where I was going. I was 49 years old. We weren't sure where we were going to live, how we were going to make money, and what we were going to do. It was really a complete upheaval. But out of that upheaval, after the grieving, of course, came a lot of blank space. I mean, the runway was clear, but I really had no blueprint for how to get or go anywhere I wanted to. My husband had moved on and created his coaching and consulting company with corporate America and doing a lot of conflict resolution and things that I had no interest in, quite honestly. And my children were on their way to college and moving on. And then there was me. And so for myself, I realized that I had some questions to answer. And those questions were things like, I mean, what am I good for? I mean, that sounds so pathetic when I say it, but sometimes we get to that point where we're just like, what am I good for? And that led to, what am I good at? And then it was like, well, what's important to me anyway at this point? Because, death changes things. Tragedy moves us in different ways. And so I went from that to, well, what do I even like to do? And then finally, the question was, what do I believe? And I mean, not necessarily about spiritual issues, but certainly some of that. But what do I believe about myself, about the way the way the world works and the way I'm supposed to fit into it? And the evolution of walking down that path and answering those questions, I didn't realize they were not questions that were unique to me. Like Monique said, she has a unique problem, a unique way that she solves problems. I didn't realize that I did too. And so I solved my own problem by walking down this pathway of answering these questions. Lo and behold, I didn't realize other people would want to do that as well. And so that led to the formation of what Monique and I have shared, this pathway and this journey, and has now, 10 years later, become this international business. So that's how that happened.
I was taking notes when you were talking because we all get to a dark place sometimes, and asking the question, what am I good at doing, is really important, because a lot of times we don't give ourselves enough credit for what we're really good at. And sometimes we have to ask others. So I really appreciate you sharing that. That really leads us to Amelia, because your journey, I can't imagine it, but your journey and on trying to make sense of your diagnosis and then creating How to Breast Cancer. Can you kind of share that with us? I think that is a heroic journey.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And, I take inspiration from Julie's comments just now, because I think it is, a dark night that that can sometimes lead you in a completely different and positive way. For me, I think anyone who receives a diagnosis of cancer goes through a roller coaster of emotions, and shock is usually the leading factor, and then a host of other things follow, because you're trying to make sense of something that doesn't make any sense. And for me, what I started to learn immediately as a patient was the amount of information that you receive all at once, and the technical nature of that information. And there is tremendous value to why you have to receive technical information about the medications and the protocols and all of that. But what started to become more and more apparent to me as I was navigating through this was, what information can I, as a patient, translate to what I say is, how does it feel in the skin, right? And so I wanted to create, and that was really the catalyst, is I wanted to create a safe space where patients that are going into this, especially those that are metastatic like me, which means you're on some form of lifelong treatment, and to have a space where you could come back to at your own pace and hear from what really happens, and how you can prepare, how you can learn from it, how you can incorporate some of those tried and true things that can help you manage all of the complexity, because you have to all of a sudden make very huge decisions with little to no knowledge of what you're deciding on, and it impacts your life very directly. So that was really the catalyst for me, to kind of echo Julie's comments. What am I good at? I think I've always been good at taking complex things and trying to make those a little bit simpler. That was a large part of my role in corporate America. And so I thought I would take those learnings that are so ingrained in me and apply it to something that can be, I think for many, and hopefully for many, I should say, life-changing. So that was really the motivation and what led me to it.
Well, that answer, Amelia, thank you, leads us to the second part of our conversation, which is overcoming challenges and resilience. So I want to go back to you, Julie, really quick. Monique describes you as someone who has gone through their own transformation, now serves as a blueprint for others seeking to co-create the life they desire. What advice do you have for people who feel stuck and are looking to make meaningful changes in their lives?
Well, I appreciate that conversation. Let's see. Yeah, thank you. I would say that, becoming good at asking questions has been, of myself and others, has been like an invaluable tool, because I think sometimes we just assume a lot and we're afraid. So where that starts with is a great first tip, I would say, in doing that, is becoming a student of yourself and not a judge. And as women, I've found that we're hypercritical. We're in a hyper comparative, critical, competitive environment most of the time. And we have the women, at least that I work with, like the Moniques of the world, are high achievers, and they run on the perfectionist side. And so they don't give themselves a lot of grace, even if they give to others. And so one of the big drivers for us is really helping them to really apply that to themselves. Be a student and not a judge. This is life-changing because there's a treasure chest of information inside of you, but judgment will make that inaccessible. And so if you can be a student and just be like, wow, isn't that interesting? I felt that, or I thought that. Isn't that interesting? Wonder what that's about. And have that whole like just curiosity versus control mindset with yourself, you will go a long way just to getting the answers because they're inside. They really are. God gives us great answers. And then the second thing I would say is the prioritization of your own personal development. Again, most of the women I know are so busy serving everyone else. It sounds like Amelia was busy serving everyone else. You know, I know the rest of you are as well, that they're often the last person on the list that they invest in. And so until it becomes a crisis like myself or Amelia's, or, you know, or like, oh my gosh, where am I? Now I better do something for myself. So I just think investing, being willing to invest time, money, and heart into developing you. I know this is going to be so counterintuitive to any of you that are altruists and serving others, but you are the most important person in your life. And the beneficiaries of the people around you are so huge. There's so much that they stand to gain from you. I often tell the women that you're a thermostat, not a thermometer in your world, meaning you set the temperature, you don't measure it. So in other words, you better fill yourself up. So take care of yourself, being the best you can. Your mental fitness is absolutely key. I am quite sure that Amelia had to like jack up her mental fitness to get through what she went through. I know Monique has from working with her, and getting a clear and accurate view of you, not an inflated one and not an underestimated one, but a clear and accurate view. And then let that clarity bring about the value that help you to understand the value that you bring. So all this is really helped by having a confidential thinking partner. Obviously, I am a coach and I highly admire, like just believe in them for all the benefits that I've had. They collapse time and help you go where you cannot go on your own. And I just, you know, why go it alone? Amelia's created a community, you know, Monique's creating a community. We're here today because we're in a community. So don't go it alone. Why? When we have resources that are untold with what we could do. So hopefully those are helpful.
Right.
Oh, extremely helpful. Get a clear and accurate view of myself is what was my note. That's key. So really quick, Monique, I want to go back to you, but then I'm going to go to Amelia. Monique, what advice would you give someone who feels stuck or unsure about their direction in life or their career? In today's fast-paced, ever-changing world, how can people adapt and pivot their path when faced with unexpected obstacles or opportunities?
Ooh, that's a lot. Okay, I'm going to try to dig in. So the first thing, I'm just going to echo what Julie said, because it's something that I never knew to do, and that's get a coach. I mean, I've had a personal trainer when I was trying to lose weight. I need to call the dietitian right now. I need to stop playing around and call the dietitian. It's been on my to-do list for a while, but I think it's such an important message. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And at the end of the experience working with a cohort of others over that year that we were able to be in the Live Your Vision cohort, one of the things that I figured out was the most valuable for me was, I like to say #squad, right? Like having that squad of people who every Friday we checked in and we got to just highlight like the good, something good that happened for us that week. Another exercise we had was expressing and practicing gratitude. And the book focuses a lot on encouraging readers to journal and to capture the gratitude aspects of their life, the things that we want to be grateful for. And I remember going through that exercise, and it was like the Ben Franklin T on the left side. I think it was like all the bad things that I could count up. And on the right side was everything that had happened that was positive in the last year. And by the time I got to like number 33 on that list, I was like, man, if we could just switch over the frequency of how we think about life, if we could switch over that frequency to focus on all of the things that are going well. So that's probably the first thing, Damali, that I would say. That's the first piece of advice. Listen to your self-talk. What frequency are you on? And you could change it because our perspective is everything. And then probably the next piece of advice is, if you're going to eat an elephant, we have to do that one bite at a time. Because when we look at a holistic big picture of our big visions, and I have another friend who's kind of like a mentor who constantly encourages other people, don't be afraid to do it big. But if we're going to do it big, it means we got to go a little bit at a time, because it's so intimidating when you look at like the big vision we have. But if we're always kind of like walking towards that, that's another perspective that we have control over. And then I think the second part of that question was about how can people adapt and pivot their paths when they're faced with unexpected obstacles. I think it's something that Julie said too, stopping to take inventory of what am I good at, and to always remember our inherent value. I feel like one of my biggest challenges just throughout this past several years, starting my firm, starting to go after some of those dreams that I've had for a while, because I always thought that, I always said I wanted to write a book. I always thought about it. But I think really just understanding that we have inherent value, and in my dedication, it's to my kids. I remind them that external validation is artificial validation, because I think if we've got to wait for the world to tell us what our value is and that we have value, oftentimes we're either going to be undervalued or we're not going to get validation externally when we think we need it, when we already have control over understanding that value. So those would be my sentiments.
Oh, that's excellent. Okay, Amelia, I'm gonna kind of put you on the spot here. Could you share some of the most significant challenges you faced by starting How to Breast Cancer, but also while going through your own personal, journey, your own medical journey?
Absolutely. I think probably one of the most significant things that that is at the forefront of how I even think about the journey, which is an ongoing journey for me, was that for the first 18 months of my treatment journey, which is now, I've been in this for a little, almost 5 years, I should say. So it'll be 5 years actually in a couple of months. The first 18 months of that treatment experience, every single chemotherapy regimen that we did failed. And so I think just to give the flavor is one, we did nothing wrong. So we were doing everything by the protocol, by the book. My treatments were at one of the top 3 medical centers in the United States and arguably the world. And yet every single one failed. And that's 18 months of failure. And in that failure window, what is also happening is, the disease at the time was just so aggressive that it was just not responding to any protocol. So you're also dealing with all of the horrendous side effects. You're dealing with the things that are happening within your body, which are terrible. And you're trying to understand what is happening here, right? And so we got to the point where we were at the end of the road, and then thankfully a treatment came along that that made it better. But that's a long time to fail. And so I think, for me personally, the challenges of that and the piece of overcoming that really challenged me to think about the amount of lack of control that you have in that whole experience, and why, as a result of that, you have to have something that you believe in that is far bigger than you. And whether that is your faith, whether that is a meditation practice, a gratitude practice, something that is higher level thinking, right? Higher level feeling. Because if you think that you can, manage all of that by yourself, and that you can just apply your logical self to that, it will not work. I'm a very logical person. I say that humbly, but that's a long time to fail, right? And so you learn in that failure just how little control you actually have, and then it forces you to think in a bigger way about the things that can actually carry you through. And so that's also another aspect of why this organization is so important to me, and creating it was so important to me, because I thought, I'm not the only one who's had that kind of failure, and certainly others can, learn and understand if it were to happen, here are some things that can help you along the way. So those are some of the principles that have helped me kind of remain standing, if you will.
Thank you for sharing that. That gives me pause to just kind of appreciate the things that I have gone through, and to also know that I can still, if dark times come, there's a way to move forward. So thank you. That really kind of touched me. Okay, let me get myself together. Guidance and advice. Let's go there. Amelia, I'm back at you. So take a little deep breath. If you need to take a sip of water. In your ongoing journey, what advice do you have for people seeking to accept what they cannot control, especially in times of crisis and uncertainty? Now, you kind of touched that, but if you can just delve in that to a little bit more.
Yeah, I'll go a little further into, in addition to what I commented on moments ago, when everything is going great, it's easy to say I'm grateful. And I had early on, many, many years ago, when I started doing my gratitude practice, I had seen this interview with Dr. Maya Angelou, who talked about that it is in the darkest moments when you actually have to, it behooves you to express the greatest gratitude, because then that energy generates within you and actually gives you even more momentum to keep going. And so for me, it was doubling down on that gratitude practice that allowed me to get through it. One thing I will say, because I think a lot of people talk about gratitude, and I think that there is, as in anything in life, it has to be real. So you have to be authentic about it. You can't just say, I'm grateful, and then that's it, right? I think you've got to go a little further and find the specifics. And I will tell you that during a cancer journey, it is really hard to say that. I will be completely honest. And so I had to challenge myself to get really granular on what exactly it was that on that particular day or that particular moment I wanted to express gratitude for, whatever it was in those moments when everything was failing. And so I challenged myself to think about, okay, today I didn't have nausea, so I'm going to be grateful that I didn't have nausea. Today I was able to actually eat. So I'm going to be grateful for that. So it's that piece. It took a long time to be able to get to the point where you can actually see above all of it. So I would say to anyone experiencing any degree of crisis, it's in the little things, like Monique said, right? It's the elephants one bite at a time. You have to drill down sometimes to the most granular level and find something that may seem mundane, but actually allows you to express and acknowledge it as a positive in your life. And then that then fuels you to keep going for the next hurdle and the next hurdle. Because it's not always about getting over, it's more about getting through. And then once you get through, you can actually see a broader path. That's what's worked for me. Everyone is unique, so you've got to find your own rhythm. But I would encourage people to really dig deep as to what feels authentic. And it doesn't have to be all the time, because there are days when it's okay to be upset. But then you have to move through.
That is excellent advice, to make sure we are being authentic in our gratitude. I wrote that down. I have to remember that. Okay, Latasha and Latricia, you are back. Yay! It's good to see you guys. So we have some questions for you. How influential figure? How have influential figures shaped your approaches to entrepreneurship and leadership? And then Latasha, you mentioned having mentors like Oprah Winfrey along your journey. Can you speak to about the power of being able to witness someone else's successful journey?
Yes, thank you all for your patience. And we had to pivot a little bit, but thank you so much. We're glad to be back. I'm a perfectionist sometimes, things happen, but yes. But so the story I have with Oprah Winfrey is a really funny story to me. We were led to message Oprah Winfrey on Twitter for like 6 entire months, like to say good morning, to give some type of greeting. And it sounds really crazy and ridiculous, because the likelihood of her answering us back was that she was not going to answer us back, right? But again, was just letting God to just go ahead and communicate with Oprah in that capacity. Fast forward, January 2018, there was a vision board done. We will meet and interview Oprah Winfrey. She's always been the mentor in our heads, and we're not really big on vision boards, but that particular time we did do it. And then fast forward again, April of 2018, maybe less than 3 months, we actually met and interviewed Oprah Winfrey. The way the story goes is we were on the red carpet and we were at the very end of the red carpet. And so Oprah was coming down and they were like, everybody get ready, have your questions ready. And of course, because we're at the end, Oprah passes us by and they kind of spearhead her into the reception hall because she was a keynote speaker. But unbeknownst, she turned around, all of a sudden looked right in our direction and came toward us so that we could have our less than 1 minute interview with Miss Oprah Winfrey. And I would like to say for anyone that's listening that I believe those Twitter greetings was the precedence for going ahead to interview Oprah Winfrey.
And that just lets you know that people see you and they watch you. And also, too, it wasn't really the interview. It's what she said after the interview. She leaned in and she said, do the work. And so that prophetic message is something that we carried since 2018, and it's evolved us into this business that we have today. So that's been the most influential to me.
And just to believe, because it may sound weird to someone that we sent her a greeting for 6 entire months on Twitter.
I thought she was crazy. I was like, what are you doing?
But it has a purpose and it served its purpose. And it's one of our fondest memories to date that someone that's a mentor in your head could actually be someone that you can still follow if you don't see them in person.
So she saw us. She saw us in that moment.
So I want to encourage somebody in that. So that's our story.
Oh, that's a great story to have Oprah Winfrey, honey. That is amazing. Oh, this is like plastered on all your social media sites and on your website and just in your home, a picture or something. I love that. That is true manifestation. All right, I'm going to go to Julie real quick. In guiding others through their own transformations, what are some common fears and doubts you see people face? And how do you help them?
Well, that's a great question, and I can imagine that Latricia and Latasha had their own doubts when they're pursuing their daily twittering to Oprah, but they persevered and they were blessed. Good for you, girls! Way to go! I'm so inspired. Well, I think one of the biggest fears that women have, or because I work with women exclusively, but so forgive me if I'm excluding any men that are on this, but fear of success, honestly, is one of the biggest ones. Fear of success, fear of being too much. That's a common fear, that I'm going to be too much. They tell me that all the time. Fear of what others think, just as the twins kind of even gave license to, as like, you might think I'm crazy, but this is what we did. We have that in our heads all the time. Fear of how their lives will change, even though they want them to, which is kind of crazy. So believe it or not, because we live a lot of times with, okay, I can muscle through, I can get through, I can pray through, I can meditate through. There's more comfortability with not succeeding or failure than there is with success, that I found in my experience. And so the women that I'm working with are tough, they're resilient, they're reliable, they're solid. So that lower level is more comfortable for them than the higher level in that sense. So what it does is it brings out all sorts of, imposter syndrome and insecurities and all those kinds of things that we're fully aware of. But my guidance to them is to take their eyes off what's going on externally, because their design determines their destiny. That's the truth. And obviously the twins were designed to meet and destined to meet, with their level of perseverance and the way they're wired, destined to meet Oprah. Like, there is a design within them that creates a destiny. I fully believe that. And it's related to that. And so they have to be grounded in, number one, who they are. Again, I go back to the same thing. I'm kind of a broken record, but who were you created to be? And as a result, what are you being called to do? So the process of becoming all they were intended to be is not about the outcome. And Nick Saban, I don't know if you're all football fans. I am by virtue of being connected to my dad and my husband and that kind of thing. But he's one of the most winningest coaches in all history, right? So in terms of collegiate football. And so he's famous for taking these, college kids that are coming and going through these transitions and creating these like all-star teams again and again and again and again. So when I studied him, I realized, you know what? His big secret is about keeping the guy's eyes on process and progress, not prize. So how do I help them get through these, fear of success? What's my life going to look like when I become a best-selling author? All the freakouts that they might be having that could prevent them and shut them down from moving forward. Maybe the fear of failure too, and what other people think, is really trusting in the process and not focusing on the outcome, but really learning to enjoy the transformative event. I'm sitting here thinking, I wonder what Amelia was like before cancer. I am so sure she is a deeper, more beautiful, more complete, more multifaceted soul today than she was 5 years ago. Because we believe that your content, what's going on in your life, God is writing content in your soul. And so what's happening here is not by accident. And so it's so freeing when you let go of the outcome, right? Amelia's a success. She's already healed. She's got this. Listen to her. She's amazing. And the truth is, it's freeing, and it opens up those self-imposed ceilings that we all put on ourselves.
Thank you for that, Julie. Okay, so I have I wrote down that I am comfortable with success. That's one of my new affirmations now, because sometimes we catastrophize before we even take the first step. So I like what you said there, which purpose that leads us right now to our purpose and mission segment. So I want to start with Latricia. How was your understanding of your purpose and mission? How has your understanding of your purpose and mission evolved throughout your entrepreneurial journey? Hold on, I think you're on mute. Can we unmute them, please? Okay, try again.
Okay, so that's a good question, Damali. I think when I started this entrepreneur journey, it was more so about the creativity. And as time passed and the business evolved, I started to realize that we were in the business of making people feel seen and heard. And I love to give back the feedback, the connectivity, not only in interviews with just everyday people, but celebrities, but also to our interns that we have worked with and our partnerships that we have developed throughout the years. And so it became apparent to me that I'm in the business of making people feel seen and heard. And that's something that's really important to me. That when I walk in a room, because I am a twin, and oftentimes when I'm by myself, I feel like I'm missing something. And so when I walk into a room in my God-given purpose, I want to be seen and heard the way that God will have me to be seen and heard. And so I want other people to feel the same way too. And I believe in this business, that's my mission and my purpose.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing with that. We're going to go back to Julie, and then we're going to go to Monique. So Julie, really quick, how has your faith played a role in your journey, particularly during the challenging times? You talked about a little bit about that earlier. Can you elaborate on how aligning yourself with a higher purpose has influenced your decision and your actions?
Yeah, I thank you. Obviously we're going to face challenges no matter what. We're in this world, and that's inevitable. So whatever they look like, death, sickness, financial challenges, relational challenges, they're coming. And most of my challenges, really, obviously my faith is foundational, getting linked in and locked into him. I trust that he'll direct me and accompany me. And that's part of it always. And so I never feel alone that way. But usually my fears are related to my limiting and beliefs and my worry, in that regard. So I actually have created a 6-point process. I'm a strategist by nature. So I created a 6-point process for myself to deal with my own challenging times. And so I keep it and I use it, and I'll share it with you. But it's very quick. But the 6-point formula, I say, for thriving in uncertainty, which is anytime there's a challenge coming, is number 1, anchor into something unchanging. Whatever that is for you, in my case, it's God. Number 2, trust that you've been given what you need to face what you will. You have within you what you need to face what you will. Number 3, see it as an adventure. That way you'll meet it with curiosity and excitement, anticipation versus fear and control. Number 4, go ahead and surrender. It's not bad to surrender when the forces are greater than you. It will give yourself some peace. Be agile and trust that even that is direction at times. And I mean, think about it. Again, I'm just getting chills when I think of Amelia. She was led to create this community because of this challenge, and she surrendered to it and brought good from it. And number 5, understand that testing, AKA obstacles, are actually opportunities. It's a chance to give yourself a raise. When you get to work through those challenges, you actually give yourself a raise in every sense of the word. Trust me, every sense of the word. I mean that. And finally, the last one, number 6, that challenges are training from him. And no one trains someone they don't believe in. So that's how I get through my challenges and anchoring it in my faith.
Thank you. 6 points. Okay, I have never thought to do that for myself. So I like that you have a 6-point strategy, and I've written them all down. So now I'm going to adopt some of those. We're going to go to Monique, back to Monique. Looking ahead, what do you envision for people who embrace the principles outlined in your book, Chart Your Path?
Yeah, thank you, Damali. I was going to tell you, you do have your own unique problem solving formula. You just have to dig it out of yourself too. But for me, for the readers specifically, when they get through the 9 steps, the culmination is a chart your path map. And so if they're moving through each step and following and kind of doing the corresponding exercises and following those instructions, my hope is that if they feel stuck, they now have a map to get unstuck. Because you're doing the exercises, we start with diagnosis, we move on to gathering the facts to support why we feel the way we feel, strategizing the right timing to confront it. If they work through those steps and those exercises, that's what I hope. I also hope that for some who read it, who maybe they don't feel stuck right now, but maybe they're considering pivoting, or even better, potentially, maybe they had a dream or passion that they shelved at some point. And then we can reignite that and rebirth it and put it on the to-do list, start that journey. I had a sorority sister, I'm going to shout her out, Miss Demita Bird, told me the other day, we were standing in a corridor. We have a sorority sister who is 104 years old. She turned 104 last week. What a blessing. And we all got to join her at her house to celebrate her birthday with her. But so Demita and I were standing in the corridor, and she told me, I'm halfway through reading the book, and I've got some things I'm going to do. It reminded me I've got some things I'm going to do now. And so that when I hear that turns my joy light on, my internal joy light, because that's exactly what I want, is for people to really talk to themselves about, what are you doing with your life? Is it what you want to be doing? And to the point of the story I shared earlier, when Julie challenged me on my perfect day, if you aren't living that life, why aren't you?
I agree. And I think what you just explained to us leads us perfectly into personal journeys and transformations. So we're going to turn to Amelia right now. And Amelia, considering your experience with navigating your diagnosis and creating How to Breast Cancer, what future initiatives or projects do you envision that can further support individuals facing similar challenges to your journey?
Yeah, so for us, one of the things that we're really focused on is really understanding what space do we want to traffic in mostly. And I think a lot of times people, especially people that start to work on, dare I say, charitable, causes, I think sometimes feel like they want to do everything. And I think, for us, we want to be very specific about the patient experience. So the activities that we do will always support every facet of breast cancer. We just did an event where we supported a research organization. So we're always going to do that. But I think picking your lane and knowing your intention is a really important thing, because then you can create a much deeper impact. And so when I talk about the patient experience and initiatives that we're focused on, that is how do we create a brighter light on quality of life being a leading indicator of success, because right now it is not the leading indicator, and in some cases it isn't talked about enough. And so I think the initiatives that we're going to focus on are really on how do we, for instance, create better ways for individualized treatment options for patients versus a one size fits most. That's an important piece of individualizing care and enhancing quality of life. The other piece that kind of goes tethered to that is this notion of patient advocacy, and how do we help create better systems that lessen the burden on the patient. Because a lot of times you'll hear people say, well, the patient has to be their own advocate, and as a patient I can tell you it's exhausting. I don't want to have to be my own advocate. I want better systems that actually do the advocating or address the issues, so that I don't have to advocate for myself at all, right? And so it's that enhancement of the patient experience that is really the key initiative that we want to support, and to work with other like-minded organizations that are going to drive that. So I think for anyone that is contemplating something like that, embarking on something where they really want to make an impact, I'd say know what your intention is, and then understand how do you really focus that intention so that you can go deep, as opposed to trying to do everything just at this level, right? So that is part of how, I wanted to structure this so that we can have a big effect. So I hope that provides a little help for some.
Oh yeah, no, that was excellent, and
Thank you.
that really helps us transform to Julie's question I have. I'm reflecting on your journey from life coach to founder of Live Your Vision. What do you believe is the most important aspect of maintaining authenticity and integrity while empowering others to pursue their dreams?
Well, I think that's a great question. And I just wanted to pause for a second and say, Amelia, I mean, it just hit me like a ton of bricks, like, duh, shouldn't like quality of life be a leading indicator? Like, what the heck are we doing? Right? Isn't that what it's all about anyway? It's cancer or no cancer? I mean, come on. Like sometimes we are like, wow, rocket science. Thank you for bringing these incredible solutions. I mean, the crazy thing is, for women that are entrepreneurs and pursuing their dreams, they're often these stupid, simple solutions. Like, really? Like the napkin, the Band-Aid, that quality of life. No kidding. So you got me started, so forgive me there. But I just think it's so exciting. I get so excited about the simple becoming the solution. So I think, to me, part of staying authentic and integratable for myself as things grow, and they have continued to grow, and actually like kind of gone. I mean, we just had this big team meeting yesterday, and I was like, oh my goodness, the growth is pretty extraordinary here. But is staying grounded in who I am, what I believe, and why I'm doing what I'm doing. I think that would be a very simply put answer. But we actually craft, as Monique knows, this, what we call an I am statement. I am a strategic problem solving visionary. They're attributes and strengths that are harvested from data and research that we've taken from many sources, so that it's not my subjective opinion of myself. It's an objective view. And I stay in that. I literally recite that, not that, but a longer version of it. I am a strategic problem solving visionary who perseveres optimistically to win others over. I am confident in my ability to learn. I am fascinated by the uniqueness of others, and I turn ideas into opportunities. Those are my God-given attributes in a sentence. That's it. And so every day I recite that, so I stay in line with who I am. To Amelia's point, stay in your lane, right? Stay in that space. And then secondarily, what do I believe? I believe that every individual is uniquely gifted. And if we take the time to discover and develop and distribute those gifts, we will bring solutions to this world that it's waiting upon. And that comes from my life story. That's themes that we pull that are recurring, that I cannot get away from, They just keep haunting me and following me. And so that's what my deepest motivation is, because I've been doing it and will continue to do it. But now we created a sentence and can articulate it. And I wire my brain every day by reciting that. So that's how I stay true to who I am and what I'm doing, and keep my authenticity and my integrity.
Okay, you are gonna have us really thinking deep here. I mean, you said a mouthful. I did write down quality of life should be the leading indicator. So I have that down because that is, like you said, duh. But then, Julie, what you talked about of just making sure that you stay in your lane and understand where you are going is also, it helps you stay focused, right? You don't go off in the weeds. You don't you're not worried about other people's business. You're focused on what you're doing and how you can make a difference. So I really appreciate you saying that. We're going to go to Latasha and Latricia. As founders of BSM Media Group LLC, you have undoubtedly encountered various milestones along your entrepreneurial journey. Can you share a defining moment or experience that reinforced your commitment to your vision and your mission?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think both of us, well, for me, I think for the both of us, can we talk about Maya Angelou? I went from reading her books in high school in my 10th grade English class to interviewing this phenomenal woman. She's no longer here, twice in 2012, 2013. And it was just such a monumental moment to be able to hear her voice and the richness in her voice, and just the torch that she passed along to me and my twin sister. I believe we're still carrying that. And then also, to another fun tidbit with Maya Angelou is that we also had her personal number. So sometimes, just for advice or just to sit at the feet of your elders, we would call her from time to time, and she would always just greet us, Mrs. McIntosh, Miss Taylor, and it's just warmed my spirit. Yeah.
Yes. Beautiful, beautiful times, beautiful moments. There's so much that has shaped us as women
Mhm.
in media. And I love the journey. It's full of successes and failures and learning and hearing the word no and hearing the word yes. And for anyone that's watching in the panel and the moderator, I've embraced the word no to be such a beautiful word. It's a beautiful language for me now. And it's helped me as a businesswoman, along with my twin sister, because it's allowed us to push toward the things that we really need to do. And part of that journey was recently, maybe over the last 3 years or so, taking some business programs such as the Cornell University Women's Entrepreneurship Program. There was the NASDAQ Milestone Circles program. And those were really eye-opening because there were a lot of things that we were doing already, but they were not really moving and shifting us and our business in the way that it needed to be done. A lot of things like leaving money on the table for particular areas in our business was very evident. So taking these business programs and being a part of it, and the illustrious alumni circles that came afterwards, has really helped to expand and grow our business. And so that's one of the things that I'm most grateful for that I can share.
I like that. I like that. And learning to embrace the word no, because it just keeps you, then helps you to keep pushing forward to your desired journey. That's what I wrote in my notes. So that is important, because no doesn't necessarily mean forever no. It just means no right now. I want to go to Monique and ask you, as your readers engage with Chart Your Path, what future possibilities do you envision for individuals who embrace the guidance and insights offered in your book?
Yes, thank you for the question, Damali. And I want to piggyback off of how important it is to get out of that fear of rejection. Also, I think Julie talked earlier about the fear of what if this actually works and what if you're successful? And I think there's two prongs there. So I want to piggyback off of what Latasha and Latricia talked about in terms of embracing no, because I think that's also a whole mental overcoming that we have to, it's a hurdle we've got to overcome, because I think innately we all have a fear of rejection. Because if someone tells us no, then what does that mean? We're not good enough. We're not good enough to be part of their circle, or we're not good enough to get this opportunity, or we're not good enough to have coffee with this person, what have you. Then that means we're not good enough. And we all are inherently, again, looking to make sure that we understand our own value, and hopefully that we don't have to get that validation externally from someone else. I actually have been invited to write 2,000 words for someone else's book, and I've got to get that done in the next 6 weeks. But I am so intrigued by our own internal reaction that sometimes stops us from going after opportunities because we're afraid of the no's, or we have that fear, that I'm going to write it about the fear of rejection and how we can overcome that in our own mind's eye. So I'd say I definitely want to encourage readers. There's a chapter in the foundational chapters. The first 5 chapters of the book are foundational. They're about the history of following paths and the science of agency and autonomy. Like, why do we want that? What is it inherently that makes us want to go after making our own decisions or having time affluence? But then there's also a chapter that I open up with that discusses a conversation that R&B soul singer India Arie was having with Oprah Winfrey on the Super Soul Sunday podcast. I love that podcast. I have it favorited. I love it. I love it. I always get really good wisdom from listening to it. But India Arie talked about her own fear that she didn't know she had of success. So again, I say it's 2 prongs, because I think sometimes we have the fear of rejection and the no's, but what does it mean if we're actually successful? Because I think we've all heard it and we all know it. It potentially means everybody can't come with us along our journey. We know sometimes we lose people for whatever reason. Maybe it is if our light is shining, potentially it reminds them of some things they want to do that they aren't doing. And so maybe that makes them feel some type of feelings that kind of make them push us away. Maybe that's it, and we know it in our soul, and we are scared of it. We're scared of the people who might not get to come along the full journey with us. But is that risk worth taking if we're going to forfeit our divine design? So I want people to come away with those profound sentiments and understanding and asking those questions of themselves.
Yeah, I think you touched on it. Meredith, one of our viewers, said the fear of rejection can be paralyzing. I agree. Sometimes you don't even realize fear is what's keeping you back until you delve a little deeper and kind of ask those questions. So, Monique, that is really great. Okay, so listen, we are almost to the Q&A part of our segment. So if you have some questions for our panelists, please go ahead and put those in the comments. Also, before I get to the final question, so I'm going to ask a final question. Each panelist is going to answer it. Then we'll get to Q&A. I just want you to know that if you got here late, that the price of the book has dropped now to $15.99 for today only. You'll find a link in the chat that will take you to Amazon to make your purchase. Our goal is to become be bestseller status within the next hour. And so you can really help us do that. You can help Monique, reach her goal here. We all have goals, and this is an easy one to make. If you've already purchased the book for this webinar, please go ahead and consider purchasing a gift. Like I said earlier, I bought a book for my niece who is graduating college in a few weeks. So thank you so much for your support. We are just excited that you're here. Monique, did you want to say something before I ask the final
just woohoo, yes, let's hit this bestseller status. And that is how each of you who are on with us this afternoon can help there. And thank you in advance.
Yes, thank you in advance. Okay, I have the final question, ladies. So be prepared. Monique, since you're the mistress of the hour, I'm going to have you go first, and then you can toss it to whomever you feel is next. If you could join a fictional book character from any book, movie, or television show on their quest adventure, which character would you choose to accompany and why?
Ooh-wee, I had to shuffle through my head. I'm somebody who watches the same movies and shows over and over and over, and my family always makes fun of me for doing that. But this afternoon, I think I'm going to go with Miss Jordan Armstrong, who is a fictional character from I think I get to call it a trilogy, but the Best Man series. So The Best Man came out in the late 90s. They had the second iteration, the sequel, Best Man Holiday. I've watched that at least 40 times, at least 40 times. And then they had the whole Peacock series that literally came out on, I want to say it was like December 22nd of 2022. And I had to have foot surgery in the morning, but so I got up when it was released at midnight and watched like most of the series. But so I love that series, but I love Jordan Armstrong. I think I would want to join her on her journey just because she's so resolute. She reminds me a lot, just personality wise, of my best friend too, which is kind of weird. And I know she'll laugh when she sees this because she knows it's true. More from like the way that she carries herself, but she's a perfectionist. She knows what she wants. And her adventure has taken her from the high school J Lab, which I'm very familiar with too, all the way to the top of being the most important woman at a major network news station. So love Miss Jordan Armstrong.
Who are you going to toss it to?
I think let's go to the twins next. I'm curious to see who their fictional character is.
Sanaa Lathan, and she played the character of Monica in the movie Love and Basketball. Now, I watched that over and over and over again, and I relate to her character because, you know, her determination and her drive, not only on screen, but off screen, because she had to learn how to play ball for that role, but she was like considered an underdog, very talented, and it's kind of like myself. You know, the talent is there, but sometimes you feel like an underdog. So I would love to go on a journey with her in that manner.
All right. And mine, of course, would be a 90s movie. It's Love Jones. And I would love to hang out with Nina Mosley. The reason being, I thought it was a very well-crafted movie. A lot of times you don't get a lot of movies where there's poetry, there's music, there's photography, there's art, the whole renaissance of it all. And I feel like we could just sit down. I don't drink coffee, so maybe hot cocoa or some tea. But I could sit down at a table with her. We can go over poetry, what we're writing, and things of that sort. Or because I'm a writer also, just being able to toss out our book ideas and the whole energy of just being a woman and existing in that. I definitely can relate to Nina Mosley. And the soundtrack is awesome. I still listen to it until this day. So yeah, that's my person. I'll pass it to Amelia.
So I'm going to go with a book character. And for me, it is in the Louise Penny series she's written now. It'll be 19 books this year. There is the Chief Inspector Armand Gamache series that takes place in a little town it's called Three Pines, and it's a fictional town, but you know, he's the lead inspector, right? Chief Inspector Gamache. And what I love about him is not only just how he goes about solving all the crimes that occur, but just you also get a glimpse of the individual that he is. And he is a gentleman. He quotes poetry. So you have this kind of old school detective, you know, in present day times. And so I think it's an amazing series. Like I said, she's written 19 of these, and I am a huge fan of Louise Penny. So for me, it would be to shadow Inspector Armand Gamache for one day and be with his team. I'm also a criminology major from university, so I've always been interested in like whodunits, but that would be my pick.
And then Julie will go.
And I'll toss it to Julie.
Okay, I'm writing down all of the names and the series and the books and all of that from your recommendations. Thanks, girls. I appreciate it. Mine's not quite so sophisticated. My selection was Mulan from the Disney series Mulan. essentially had to look her up in Wikipedia to get all the backstory, because she's a free-spirited, clumsy girl from a small Chinese village and who can't follow the rules or the traditions that were set apart for women at the time. And so despite that, she has a warm heart and deeply loves her father and wants to uphold her family honor. So she uses her wits, she uses her quick thinking, her true heart to overcome brutality that's been placed upon her during the society. And as a result, has a low self-esteem and, difficulty believing in herself. But she rises nonetheless, even through all of that, and overcomes that brutality to even serve many fellow soldiers, because as you know the story, she becomes one by impersonating a man, and then actually helps save China. And so nevertheless, she has retained her humble spirit and loving nature. And what I love about her is she's a true strategist. I would love to accompany her and be privy to see how she manages all those societal challenges without falling prey to being a victim, and figures it out. And then I would love to just get inside her head and see how she can figure out like everything from the relationships with her family to what's going on in society to her little dear companion Mushu, and how she has that little buddy that she brings along with her. So anyway, like I said, not as sophisticated, but I love Mulan.
Oh, I love Mulan too. She did not only save herself but save China. I love that movie, so I'm glad you had that. And then I am a detective in my own mind, so now I'm gonna have to go and start reading that series. I'll read a book and I'll be like, I'll figure it out, and I'll be like, y'all should have known that. I figured that out last chapter. So I love all the recommendations. I know all the movies. I just didn't know the series with the detective that Amelia shared with us, but I will start. I always looking for a good murder mystery. So it's time for Q&A. I am going to start. Who should I start with? I'll let you guys decide who wants to answer this first question. Can you share a personal experience where fear significantly impacted your decisions and how you overcame it to move forward? Who wants to take that answer? Monique.
I think I'm going to take it because I'm sitting here thinking about it. I mean, it's a thing. It is, and it can be paralyzing if you don't figure out how to overcome it. So I'm thinking about my own journey, right? Like this is all new, like writing a book, and then you've got to tell people you wrote it. So that means you don't just get to be. I'm an introvert. Some of my friends laugh when I say that because they've been knowing me since high school. They're like, you aren't. I am. And when I say introverted, I mean in the sense of I'm one of those people who has to have time by herself, plug myself in the charger, get recharged to be an extrovert or to, spend time or to go to a party. It takes a lot out of me. But even just in our own heads, because I'm kind of like, I'll tell this story. I have to go to this derby party in next Saturday, not this Saturday, next Saturday. And I bought this big, huge hat that I'm going to wear. And I don't wear hats. So I'm like in the bathroom, like getting ready to, I'm trying to see how this hat looks. And my 15-year-old looks at me and says, first of all, where did you get that hat? And who do you think you are? Right? Like, that's how I feel. And he's mouthy. But he's like, where are you going? He said, I hope you're not going to start wearing those hats to church. But I feel like we feel like that. It's the imposter syndrome. So I'm like, but I have to tell people so that I can, get the pre-sales. So I'm literally like having to text people one by one, and it feels so uncomfortable. And I kind of feel like in myself, like when I'm putting on that hat, who do you think you are? But to the point about overcoming the fear of rejection, you just got to get in it. You got to practice it. You've got to look for opportunities where you might face rejection, because that's how you're going to beat it. And so I think that is what it is. Just wear the hat, put on the hat, face it, because then once you get in it, it feels less invasive and it doesn't sting as much.
And wear that hat, honey. You know who you are. And that's what that's going to do, is teach him that no matter what anybody else is saying, if you feel comfortable in this hat, if you like this hat, you're going to wear your hat. And that way he can wear whatever he wants to wear when he gets to be older. Right now, 15-year-olds just want to fit in, but
For
we
sure.
you would, and take a picture and post it, please.
I
Okay.
will.
We have another question. What are some effective strategies you recommend for individuals to manage their fears while pursuing their goals? I think this is the perfect question for Julie, so we'll hand that over to her.
Oh yeah, I love good strategy. That's what keeps me in line. As for someone that probably has ADD or ADHD, I don't know. I'm never, pre-diagnosed before my time. But I would say again, I think I mentioned it earlier. I'll just go back to what I said, but get clarity about who you are in terms of your natural gift set. And if you're facing fears, that's where you anchor in, pull in and draw strength from God and or your higher power and who you were created to be. And so honestly, that will help. Like when you take your eyes off of what's going to happen and who's going to be there and what are they going to think, all that external, as Monique referred to it, artificial. She called it artificial validation, but it's also artificial just information sometimes. And so if you can just get your eyes off that by grounding into who you are and why you're here. And then you keep your eyes on the prize in that sense, that you're here to be who you're called to be and deliver what you're called to deliver. And that's it. And, may you touch someone, may you bring someone brightness, may your life make someone else's life better. And if it's only one person, great. If nobody does it, but you were true to yourself, great. But to me, it's always that here, even today, because, coming on this webinar with Monique, she's no slouch, right? So we know she's got high expectations. I'll be honest, I was nervous. I was talking to Lorna before this. Lorna, I'm a little nervous coming on here today. So I just go back to who am I? What am I here for? What do I want to do in the essence of my heart? And I want to support Monique. She's phenomenal. Her work is incredible. She makes life better everywhere she goes. So that's my goal. And if that's all it is, then great. So I hope that's helpful. I don't have time to fear when I'm focused that way, I guess is the bottom line.
That's excellent help. I wrote that down again, because I think that's really what you're saying right there is really key, and it helps you to focus and then move forward. I like where you're going there. We have another question from Jasmine Berry. What are some good ways to ground yourself? I think I'm going to go ahead and give that question to Latasha and Latricia. Can you help us understand what are some ways to ground ourselves?
Yes, and thank you, Julie and Monique, with your previous responses. They were really wonderful. What helps to ground me is to always be a student, whether it's in my personal or professional life. I always want to wake up each day to learn something new. I think it's very important. It definitely keeps me grounded, because when we know better, we do better. So of course, the more I learn, the more I do better for myself. And then I'm able to pour that out into my community of people, my business, my children, anyone that's around me. And I also link it to my gifts and talents that I have. Like the more I learn about them and learning about myself, I'm able to better share that with other people. It just makes me become a better person, a better businesswoman. And then also too, I just want to be a wealth of resources for someone. I always say if there's two people that are in the room together, we should leave that room with some information, some knowledge, some type of tip, something that will help us to move forward. So looking at those things actually and applying them helps to ground me. And then being around someone, volunteering, maybe being around someone whose situation is a little different than mine, taking myself out of my situation and putting myself into someone else's situation, spending time with them, reading to them. That keeps me grounded in a lot of ways. And just remembering that no matter if I had a fabulous interview the day before or did something wonderful the day before, the next day is the next day, and I have to give it the same type of energy. And that keeps me grounded. And mine is really short. I'm right there with Julie. Faith is everything for me. So starting my day off with prayer and just reading inspirational content. If I don't do that, I'm not right for the rest of the day. So it's just basically staying grounded in my faith walk. And that pretty much sets the tone for my day.
Oh, that is powerful. I just was sharing with the ladies before we all came on here how I before we got to was going into my meditation this morning when we got some news. So I was like, it was a perfect time to just kind of meditate and hope that this would all go well, which it has been. I have a question for Amelia. In your view, how important is community support in helping individuals overcome fear and start building the life they desire?
Thank you for that. I mean, I think community is enormously important. I think it also varies by individual. So something Monique said earlier about being an introvert, I think is an important component because not everybody recharges the same way. And so I think that if community serves to help you, even as introverts, I think sometimes introverts struggle. I know I'm an introvert as well, so I struggle sometimes with communities that are too big. And so I think what I always say is, try, right? Try and see how it feels. If it feels natural and if it feels comfortable, then I think community can play a significant role, because I think a lot of times what community does is that it gives us the awareness that we're not the only ones experiencing something. We're not the only ones that may have that particular fear. So by learning from others and hearing other stories, you can feel like, oh, it's not just me, right? And that helps you, right? Because it's that relatability that lifts us up. But I think community isn't for everyone. And I think sometimes people struggle with feeling like they have to go into a community setting in order to get that support. So I think there are other ways to find your tribe and your community, and it could be a very small group. I mean, for me at the beginning of the journey, my community was really just 4 people, and that was perfectly fine for me. So I think trying to find that balance of community is important to understanding how you fill your cup and how you kind of navigate in the world. So I think there's a balance there to that. But I think once you find that, then I think it's the ability to be, again, honest with one another and sharing our fears and our challenges that help us to really climb above whatever we may be having an issue with that particular time. That's been helpful for me.
Thank you, Amelia. I like that, because community, like you said, can be kind of big for some people. So that was a great insight. We do have a question from Jana. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Your name right. I am big on name pronunciation, so please forgive me if I mispronounced it. She asks, can anyone share their process for identifying and setting boundaries as you seek success? Who wants to take that on? Okay, Julie, I think this is the perfect question.
Yeah, I saw that question come up, I think, in the chat. So that's a question that we get asked frequently, because as you're growing, the more the need for boundaries become, you're going to get opportunities to do a lot of things. And so, that makes sense. So one of the quickest and most precise ways that have helped me to identify and then set boundaries is by, number one, doing a values clarification exercise. Because what's important to you is often, and as women, we've often had our values pasted upon us by society, our families, our roles, our jobs. And sometimes we allow our roles or our jobs in life to determine our values, when that's backwards. Right. And so then we're saying yes to a million people and not being able to set them because we think that that's what that is required for a mom or an executive or whatever, or a business owner. So I just want to recommend that you start get a values clarification. You can download one off the internet. You can select those top 5 values and you start aligning your day, your schedule, your relationships, and all decisions that you make through that lens, through that metric of what is important to you. Because think about it. At the end of the day, if you've done what's important to you, and you'll know what to say yes to and what to say no to by virtue of that, if you've done what's important to you, you'll have had a good day by your own definition. So think about that. If your success, your boundaries can be determined by your values, and your values, quite honestly, are the foundation of your boundaries.
I think that's a perfect answer. And I'm going to Google that and look that up on the values clarification. I think I need to do that myself. So this has been excellent. I'm a host, but I'm like learning so much from you all. I think this is a really important question that we have, and we only have a few minutes left, so I want to get to this question. How do you identify when fear is holding you? Who wants to take that question? I think this is good for the whole panel. So does anybody want to take that question? How do you identify when fear is holding you back? Okay, Amelia.
I'll say something about the fear piece. I think that a lot of times we forget what we've overcome or how we have overcome previous fears. And so for me, in my day-to-day management of something that is never really in my control, I often challenge myself to the last big fear and how did I overcome that? And sometimes I have to go all the way back to when I first came to the United States as a 9-year-old child who did not speak English. And how do you learn English? This is well ahead of bilingual programs in schools. So I think it's just a way. One, when fear is holding you because fear is constant. I mean, I live with it every single day. Every single day. Every time I have to go in for a scan. And so I just think back to my last big fear moment. How did I get through it? Because obviously I did. Otherwise, I wouldn't be standing. So I think if we remind ourselves of how we overcame the last one, I think it helps a little bit with the present one. That's something I do all the time.
I love that. We have a couple more minutes, so does anybody else want to tackle the fear question? Monique, Julie, Latasha.
Hands, I saw the hands going up.
Okay.
Yes, I tap into it. I actually like the part about Monique's book where it talked about like the women, of course, years and years ago who married at like when they were teenagers, our grandmothers, our great grandmothers, and the story that she had about her grandmother, I believed, who actually went against the norm and got her college degree, which was very similar to our great grandmother. She actually went to college, got her degree as well, and she became an educator. So that was very similar to what we experienced as well. But I like the fact that when she was interacting with her daughter in the conversation in the book, like when we think about fear, we think about maybe something that we cannot do, to tap into our ancestors, our great grandmothers, and the women who normally were positioned to be at home, to cook, and just to be there for their husbands and their children, and to tap into what their lives may have been like, that in today's present time, we should be able to just look at the hardships maybe that they had it a little bit harder than we did, and just persevere, just because if they could do it back then and whatever limited resources they had, we surely can do it now. And that's how I've been looking at tapping into my fears in this day and time. And ditto to that. Yes.
Oh, I love that. Going back, that story about Monique's grandmother was really deep. We have just a couple of minutes, so really quick, I want to do some housekeeping. Once again, I want to thank everyone who purchased the book. I saw a lot of you purchase multiple books in the chat, so I really, really appreciate that. I know Monique is really excited about that. Again, today the book is $15.99 for today only. So what you're gonna do, and everyone is helping us reach the bestseller status. What you could do if you're comfortable with this is no pressure. You can just talk about how much you enjoyed this webinar and the book, and you can put the link to the Amazon link in your own personal profile, maybe on Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever, and just kind of share this gift with others. We'd really appreciate that. We're going to wrap up, but Monique, I wanted to kind of end with you, since you are the woman of the hour. You're the reason why we're here. You brought us all together. I wanted to know if you had any last words.
I do. I just want to again express my own gratitude for the generosity that each of you have shared, not only today with us this afternoon and with your wisdom and with your stories and with your sentiments, but it just in saying yes and being willing to be interviewed, to be a part of the book. And then thank you to all of the early supporters and pre-sales purchasers. It's surreal to get this kind of support, especially before the book was even done. There was nearly 100 books sold before the book was, I didn't even have it done. And so I'm like, now that means I have to get it. People are going to be asking where their book is. So I just want to say thank you for all the support. Again, it's very surreal the celebration's not over. For my Omaha family, friends, supporters, we're going to all be together at the Press Club this Saturday, April 27th from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. And so we're going to toast this thing in. Ladies, if you're wherever you are on Saturday at about 4:30, we'll be toasting. So if you want to join us virtually or spiritually, please do that. Julie knows that we talked about this, Julie, in the cohort. After one project ends, what do? Start the next one. I start the next one right away. So I'm going to close out. You're on mute. You're on mute, Julie.
Girl, no. Before you start that next project, you must celebrate. And I don't mean just with your promotion here. I mean, in a big way, make sure you celebrate. Mark time, buy yourself something special.
Yeah, she got on me for not.
She was like,
you don't do a good job of celebrating, like small or big things. So I'm trying to. Chapter 9 is explore new adventures and open up to new possibilities. So I was going to say that, but then I know that I have some scholars and practitioners on with me this afternoon. I've got some professor friends from across the nation. I've got some PR friends. So I am sticking a link in the chat specifically for you all, because Julie knows I also go from one project to the next. And so in the fall, PR people, I need help. In the fall, I'm going to be working on a certification for my software platform, Anvil Ready. And so I need to know if you're interested in helping with that. So if you are, please complete the form. Be in touch with you for more details on that. But again, we're right at 90 minutes. And so thank you to everyone who tuned in to join us today. Shout out to my team. They've been behind the scenes feverishly working to make sure that today could happen. They just know I have the ideas. I have the inspiration. They do the perspiration, and they know I'm incredibly and deeply grateful to them, because I never even know how we're going to make this stuff work. They make the magic happen. I come up with the vision, and they're like, yep, we got you. We're going to bring that to life. So thank you to all of them, and to all of our esteemed panelists, and to everyone who joined us this afternoon. I love you all. I appreciate the support. Have a great afternoon.